My name is Jeremy. I'm the principal game designer at Kang Stockholm, and today we're going to be talking about creating for casual, designing for bright-size brilliance. A little bit about me. I'm currently in Stockholm. I just moved 3 months ago. Before that, I was in Berlin. So I'm from Singapore originally. I moved to Berlin. I stayed there for 3 years, and then now I'm in Stockholm. I've been a lifelong gamer for 30 years. The first game I played was Super Mario Brothers. I only had 2 games. I destroyed every block in Super Mario Brothers. And my favorite game of all time is Zelda, Ocarina of Time. It's my 10th year in the industry. I've been AAA, I've been in indie, I've been in mobile. So basically seeing all the different sides of the industry. Some things we're going to cover in the talk today, 4 different points. Like every time that you see the word players, just imagine the word casual before that. So why do casual players play? When do casual players play? How do they play? And what keeps casual players playing? These are some of the questions we'll try to answer in today's talk. So first, why do our players play our games? If you look at the mobile scape today, there's so many different games. There's Subway Surfers, there's Candy Crush, there's Episodes, Gardenscapes. Different players play for many different reasons. Of course, in King, in general, we have a history of creating bite-sized game loops. So, like, you might know some of these games, Pet Rescue, Papa Pear, Candy Crush, of course, Farm Heroes. And our audience is generally, like, 35 and above, female, and they play for 3 different reasons. Most of them play to relax. They play to look for excitement in their daily lives, and they also enjoy a mental challenge. This is what we found out when we did some surveys. Fun facts about Candy Crush. Candy Crush has been played, and these are old stats, I think, 1 trillion game rounds, and that kind of translates to about 5 million years in time. So that's a lot of games. Generally, how do we approach designing our games, and what do we do for creating for our players? We look at 6 different things. So we want to create a game that is, like I say recognition here, but it's more about being comprehensible, about being that you can understand it. So they see it, it reminds them of something maybe, they can understand what to do in the game, and they can pick up and play instantly. We also create for short game loops. We use this term quite a bit in King, bite-sized brilliance, which means creating small little games that can last for 2 to 3 minutes, that can be played on mobile. Accessibility is a huge thing, that it needs to be simple, the 5-minute experience needs to be there, all the UI has to be accessible, and one thing that we focus on a lot is one-hand play. The game has to be able to be played with one hand. We look at strong visuals, and normally there's not a huge push for 3D for us. The thing is that there's always an argument, should we do 2D, should we do 3D? Like, the bottom line is that it has to look pretty, and the players has to look appealing to the players. So they have to look at it and they're like, it's so often that we get like the casual players telling us things like, it looks really 3D, but actually it's not. It's just because it's nice little like parallax or layers and that kind of stuff, and we use that to create the illusion of that. This thing, the last 2 points are more gameplay points from a designer point, so it's like balance of skill versus luck. The players need to feel smart, they need to feel that they are the masters of their own destiny, that they actually did something to influence the outcome, but they also want to feel lucky. So like having the right optimization of skill versus luck is super important that we try to hit. All skill makes the games too hard to master, and too much luck makes the thing too much like a slot machine, so it has to be a right balance. The last point, avoid time pressure. This one is a bit trickier to explain, but I'm going to, so generally we try to avoid time pressure, but it happens in Candy Crush, but I'll talk about it in my later slides. So, when do players play? Traditionally, there's a huge difference between console or PC gaming versus mobile gaming. Like in console games, the players are locked in and for a session, whereas in mobile games, they can pick it up and play anytime. So there's a huge difference in designing for any of these things. Like, if you think about when the players play mobile games, it could be any time. It could be on the train, it could be waiting for a plane at the airport, it could be when they're babysitting their kid, it could be when they're talking to their friends over lunch. The engagement level and the loops which you need to design for are totally different depending on the situation. So, everybody knows this guy? Yeah, this guy is Daniel Day-Lewis. He's one of the most famous, one of the best actors, in my opinion, in Hollywood. He's famous for doing method acting, which is putting himself, totally committing to a role in whatever role that he's in. So, for example, in Lincoln, he did this, basically. He just refused to speak to British actors because he wanted to stay in character, to sound like Lincoln the whole time, and he insisted that everybody call him Mr. President. He also broke 2 ribs when he was filming for something else. So, yeah, I wrote an article on Gamasutra about this. Like, when Candy Crush Soda was released in 2014, this was my first year in King, I'm obviously not a 35-year-old above female, so at least in body. So I had to try to understand our audience. So this is what I did. I actually, for 3 weeks after Candy Crush Soda was released, I actually did this thing where that's the only game that I played. I didn't play any console games. I tried to be a pure, casual, mobile gamer, and that's what I did to try to understand our audience. So I played Candy Crush like 4 times a day. I played it in the morning, I played it in the afternoon during lunch, I played it on the train back from work, I played it before I slept. Fun fact, a player plays around, like our average player plays around 10 to 15 rounds of Candy Crush a day. So this is what I did. I played Candy Crush multiple times a day. I even went to, I think the maximum I did was clearing 20 levels in one day with 40 lives or something. So, yeah. And then I realized that when you're designing for mobile, the core game loops, the approach how you approach core game loop design is totally different from normal console games. If you look at the best mobile games out there, Candy Crush or even like Clash Royale or even Infinity Blade, they're all designed around short sessions. And this is where I have the magic numbers, which are 3, 30, 24, 7. What do these mean? It means that when you're designing mobile games, I think about the game loops in these numbers, which is your game a 3-minute game loop? What is one typical session that you can actually do for the game? Can it be extendable to a 30-minute session? Like, what is a 30-minute experience? Is it 5 lives in Candy Crush? Is it 1 arena in Clash Royale, for example? Is it 1 dungeon in Infinity Blade? 24-hour retention, something has to be there to keep your players coming back after 24 hours. They go to sleep, they wake up, they have to be like, okay, I need to come back to this game because of reason X or reason Y. And then think about where your players would be in 7 days. Are they 20 levels in? Are they 40 levels in? Do they have new gear? They need to see some sort of progression if they're going to invest a week of game time. If you think about like breaking it down in Candy Crush, it looks a bit like this. So a session is about 3 to 5 minutes. 5 lives, if you multiply that by like 5 minutes by 6 lives, because one of the lives will probably recharge during that session. That's 30 minutes. The lives take about 150 minutes to recharge fully. So that's 90 minutes before they can play it again. So you can play it 4 times a day, kind of. And in 7 to 14 days, that's when you normally will hit 20 levels. Depending on how good you are, depending on how difficult the levels are, all that kind of stuff. So we can use this. Now, we can use these numbers to kind of try to plan player progression. Like if we think about content, like we release, depends on which Candy Crush game, we release content about once every week or once every 2 weeks. So we can try to use this to try to gauge roughly where the players would be and how much content we need to deliver on what kind of frequency. How do our players play the games? Casual players are really different. They think about different things because they're playing this as a side thing. It's not a main thing that they sit down and do. So they will be thinking about different thoughts when they're playing the games. Things like, yeah, I'm on the train, I could play a few rounds of Candy Crush maybe. Yeah, I'm waiting for the plane. How long do I want to wait for the rewards or for my lives to refill? They're talking to their friends. It's like they're playing Candy Crush. It's like we call them, like we have some players where we call the force players. They're just like swiping and they kind of know what they're doing. It's like, yeah, they're talking to their friends. They're like, yeah, I hear you, swipe, swipe, swipe. Or they could be babysitting their kids, which is like, yeah, the kid is crying and they're playing Candy Crush. Or they come back from a phone call and then it's like, okay, wait, what was I supposed to do again? So this is part of how, when I was doing the study, the method acting thing, I did this as well. I played Candy Crush in all kind of scenarios. Like, my friends hated me because they were talking to me at lunch, and I'm like, yeah, swipe, swipe, swipe. I'm on the train, and then I'm playing this, and I have to stop. I have to change trains with halfway into a level just to see whether I remember what I was doing. If I had to put it in one diagram, it's kind of like this, which is designing for normal core games like console or PC. You're designing for that space, where players are sitting down, they're totally engaged, they commit to it, and they have an experience out of it. If you're designing for casual, it's more like designing for the space around it, which is negative space. So they are going to pick up your game at any time, and they're going to put it down at any time as well. It's not something that you can expect your players to kind of just go in and be committed to it, because they have to it's pick up and play. The term that we use a lot, you try to measure in King, is cognitive load. Cognitive load, in definition, means that thing above, refers to the total amount of mental effort being used in the working memory. That means how much mental effort does the player have to expend when they are actually playing the games. And this is where we think about two different things. Pick up and play, like I mentioned so many times. The game sessions have to be interruptible, where they can sort of stop in a move, and they come back and they look at the board and they know exactly what to do. So it should be as easy to pick up as it is to put down. The objective should also be clear all the time. So the players need to know that, okay, I have 5 more jelly. If I come back to the level 24 hours later, it's still 5 more jelly that I need to clear. So yeah, it has to be super clear. It has to be something that the players can look at it, they can read it, they can understand it. And general game design rule, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Always works. If you look at a breakdown of the levels in Candy Crush 1, we have 6 different game modes. And you will notice that 3 of them have significantly less number of levels than all the other 3 game modes. And these are the move levels, the time levels, and the mixed objective levels. Because these kind of game modes are generally harder and they bear more cognitive load than the other game modes. Move levels, the problem here is that it's abstract. Even when the player reaches the score, they have to finish the level to get it. So it's like, if you come back, imagine if you got the score and then you come back 24 hours later and then you're like, why am I still here? Like, what do I need to do? So that's confusing, which is why we have some of it, but we don't have that many. Time levels, this is the one that people hate. And we realize that, I think especially for the older audience, this is the one that's tricky because they are generally not good at it. Like, even when my mom was playing, she always passed it to me when she had to play the time levels because they just don't like the time pressure. So you notice that even though we still do it in Candy Crush 1, but if you look at Candy Crush Soda or Candy Crush Jelly, we don't do time levels anymore. So that's also a problem where the cognitive load is too heavy. The heaviest of all is, of course, this one, mixed objectives, when you have 2 different goals, where you need to clear jelly and drop the fruit or something, or a combination of them. These are the ones that are generally harder, and because they require 2 different requirements, that the players it's only in late game, and we only do it for once in a while for the hard levels. What keeps our players playing at the end of the day? So it comes down to 3 reasons. For casual games, it's still the predominant reason is that they still play it to waste time. It's a time waster. It has to be something that they can pick up and play easily, and then they just spend 2 or 3 minutes, and then it's okay. This is the tricky part. Once you can get them into the routine where they go onto the train and they start playing your game, then you kind of have them in. So they play for routine as well. They're used to it. Like, if you ask some players who are at level 1000 over in Candy Crush, do they enjoy it? They will be like, yeah, I kind of enjoy it, but it's just so used to it, which is why they still keep playing it. And very importantly is the last point, which is unfinished business. Something in the game has to keep players wanting to come back. If you look at our Saga, like this is how we generally design in the old days at least. how we designed the Saga format. So somebody has a really bright idea. It's like, this is a good game concept. We put it we used to have this game website called royalgames.com, where we did, like, it's a skill game website. It has, like, all the different games. Candy Crush was actually there. And then we put it onto a meta, which we call the Saga Envelope, and then we put it on mobile. The thing that keeps players coming back in our case is this thing. It's the Saga Envelope, which is, we call it the envelope because it's probably the dumbest name, but it's right as well, because it's like, if your core gameplay, you put it in a wrapper, that's kind of like why it's called an envelope. Basically, it's like playing Candy Crush levels, but having a progression-based retention driver, which is linear progression, thousands of levels that just goes forward. Has light social elements. You can send lives, you can receive lives, you can see your friends on the map. It feels like a board game. And there's a continuous content for casual players. So it's like players are moving from one level to the other, and it's always something new. It's not a new concept. It's been there since Super Mario Brothers. You know, like every level is different, and you just move forward. But these are the players who used to play Bejeweled for like 10 years. And then now you give them, instead of the same board every time, it becomes different levels every time that you play, that you can move on to new content. So this is the unfinished business part. Fun fact, we're going to hit 3,000 levels in Candy Crush pretty soon. Maybe end of this year, maybe next year. Let's see. So that's how many levels we have now. But of course, the cost of this is that it means that we need a lot of levels, because 3,000, that's pretty insane, right? Which is why we have the heroes of the company, which are the level designers, like Merkel. She was trying it out. They design levels and progressions. They create content at a regular pace. They tweak the difficulty. They have to review their levels all the time. They have to test it. And they're involved in designing new gameplay content, new blockers, new game modes. It's all under the level designers. Like this part is I've spoken about some of these slides in my GDC talk last year, but I'm just going to say it again, some of it. Level design is basically where if you imagine the game to be your mechanics to be your building blocks, level design is using the building blocks to create different structures. So in Candy Crush, we have, from a mechanical level, if you think about it, we have 18 blockers and 6 game modes. But the level designers have to use this to create over 3,000 levels. It's quite similar, what I'm going to say is quite similar to what Sasha was saying in his talk yesterday. This is the level design process in general. You come from a level concept, you do a level layout, you create the level in the editor, you balance the level, or you think that you did, you test it, and then you go back and balance it, and you test and you balance forever. If you see that more visually, it looks a bit like this. Like in the editor, it looks like a level layout. You do this, it looks like this. First, it's like, okay, this is a good shape. I like it. And then I put the objectives, I put jelly, I put ice, whatever. And then I put the game objects. So it's like I can put the power-ups, I can do whatever I want. And then I put the blockers, and then I test it. And normally it goes to shit. Classic example of going to shit, level 65 in Candy Crush. Does everybody know this? So when we made Candy Crush, it was meant to be, level 65 was originally the last level, so we wanted to be like, let's make the hardest level ever, and it kind of was. And then we were like, oh shit, we need to make more levels than this. But level 65 just happened to remain as the hardest level. We tweaked it so many times. Players hated it. But after multiple tweaking and everything, now the rainbow at the end of it is this line. These used to be one of the most difficult levels until it was modified, and now it is one of the most fun levels. Yeah. So this is the challenge of a live game, that even when you launch it at the start, you're going to use the data to just keep tweaking it until it becomes right. The thing that we look at a lot is difficulty. How many attempts that the players have, how difficult are the levels. We use different matrix we use different axes to try to balance it. So the number of objectives, for example, the balancing of the moves, what are the mastery star score values, number of colors in the level, balancing number and level of blockers. We use all these things to try to tweak levels so that they become more optimal. What makes a fun level? I've covered this in more detail in my other talk, but yeah, in general, it comes down to these 4 principles, like difficulty, which is keeping players challenged, rhythm, varying the player experience, flow, keep the players moving towards the goal, and hooks, what makes a level different or what makes a level special. Some examples of good levels that we have, like if you utilize a mechanic, everybody knows this game, Blossom Blast. So Blossom Blast is a game where you link stuff and things explode. So this level only has one objective, which is clear that thing in the center. So this is it's a unique mechanic of Blossom Blast, and the level was created around doing that. So you can see, if you create a link, you need to create it close enough, and then it explodes, and then you can clear that thing and the level is over. We also think about creating new gameplay dynamics, like combining things together. So for example, in Candy Crush Jelly, we have this thing where you are fighting an AI Jelly Queen, and then we extended that so that it became another AI character called Cupcake Cow, and we combined Cupcake Cow's AI thing, like AI behavior, with another game mode, which is Finding the Pufflers. So this is a combination of mechanics into a new dynamic. Creating emotional moments. Sometimes the levels are just special levels where they made the feel cool. That is something that just happens. So like for example, in this level, there's only one move that you can do, which is chocolate bomb into the orange candy. The stuff at the bottom will explode, and you paint with jelly, and the thing feels like a wow moment for players. And this is pretty early on in Jelly. I think it's level 8 or 10. I can't remember now. Or sometimes we have gameplay modifiers. If you play Farm Heroes Super Saga, there's this win mechanic where, depending on the direction that you swipe, the things go that way. So this happens in some levels, and it makes the levels different as well. And this is the challenge of having a live game that lasts for a really long time. That in the end, these guys, like whether the boss is there, whether the boss is there doesn't really matter. These guys are probably the level designers. So they just have to drag, or they are the ones carrying the business forward, and they are the ones doing the content like forever. When we created Candy Crush in 2012, we honestly didn't expect it to last this long, and we created 2 other games from there. Like we released Soda in 2014 and Jelly in 2016. And the thing that we realized over the last few years is that Candy Crush as a game, Candy Crush 1, recently is still stable and it's still growing. So the things that we're not sure how long more, maybe we can even last for another 5 million years of game time. Who knows? And that's it from me.